New Year's Eve was never my favorite holiday. It always seemed like a forced celebration, an arbitrary mark of time's passage, wrapped in glitter and false promises of fresh starts. Yet, there I was, against my better judgment, driving up the snow-dusted road to a remote cabin in the woods. My old college friends had insisted. "You can't spend another New Year alone, Sam," Jess had said, her voice dripping with pity. "Come on, it'll be fun. Just us, a cozy cabin, a roaring fire, and a couple of bottles of champagne. What could go wrong? What could go wrong?" The thought had lingered in my mind like a dark cloud as I navigated the winding forest road. The further I drove, the heavier the silence became, the kind of silence that presses against your eardrums and makes you aware of your own heartbeat. The forest seemed alive, its tall pines swaying against the twilight, their skeletal branches clawing at the darkening sky. I arrived just as the sun dipped below the horizon. The cabin stood in a clearing, its wooden facade bathed in the pale light of a rising moon. Jess, Mark, Lisa, and Danny were already there, their laughter spilling out into the night as I parked. The sound was comforting, a temporary balm to the unease that had taken root in my chest. The interior of the cabin was warm and inviting, a stark contrast to the oppressive chill outside. A fire crackled in the stone hearth, casting flickering shadows on the log walls. Jess handed me a mug of hot cider as Danny and Mark bickered over which board game to play first. For a moment, I allowed myself to relax. But then, as midnight approached, something shifted. It began subtly, a faint scratching at the windows, barely audible over our chatter. "Probably just the wind," Mark said dismissively when I mentioned it. Yet, the sound persisted, growing louder and more insistent. By the time we were halfway through a game of Monopoly, even Danny, the skeptic of the group, couldn't ignore it. "Maybe it's a branch," he muttered, getting up to look. The rest of us followed him to the window, peering out into the darkness. At first, we saw nothing but the faint outlines of trees swaying in the wind. Then, Jess gasped, clutching my arm. "There," she whispered, pointing. I squinted, my breath fogging the glass. A figure stood at the edge of the clearing, barely visible in the moonlight. It was tall and unnaturally thin, its limbs long and angular. It didn't move, didn't sway with the wind like the trees around it. "Probably just a trick of the light," Danny said, though his voice lacked conviction. We retreated to the living room, trying to shake off the unease. Midnight was approaching, and Lisa suggested we focus on the countdown. "Let's not let some creepy shadow ruin the night," she said, forcing a smile. But the atmosphere had changed. The air felt heavier, the warmth of the fire unable to chase away the chill that had settled in the room. As the countdown began, the scratching returned, louder, more frantic. It wasn't coming from the windows this time. It was coming from the door. 10, 9, 8. The scratching turned to banging, a desperate, violent pounding that made the walls tremble. 7, 6. "Who the hell is that?" Mark shouted, his face pale. 5, 4. Jess grabbed my hand, her nails digging into my skin. 3. The door burst open, the force of it extinguishing the fire in the hearth. 2. A gust of freezing air swept through the room, carrying with it the stench of decay. 1. The figure stood in the doorway, its hollow eyes gleaming in the darkness. For a moment, none of us moved. The creature was impossibly tall, its head nearly brushing the ceiling. Its skin was stretched tight over its bones, gray and mottled like something long dead. It opened its mouth, revealing rows of jagged, uneven teeth, and let out a sound that was neither human nor animal, a guttural, ear-piercing screech that made my blood turn to ice. Lisa screamed, and the spell was broken. We scattered, each of us scrambling to escape. Jess dragged me toward the back door, but as we reached it, I heard Mark's cries behind me. I turned, just in time to see the creature seize him, its long fingers wrapping around his throat. "Run!" He choked out before the thing pulled him into the shadows. We burst out into the night, the snow crunching under our frantic footsteps. The forest closed in around us, the trees seeming to loom closer with every step. Behind us, the creature's shrieks echoed through the night, a chilling reminder that it was still hunting. Jess and I ran until our lungs burned, until the cabin was far behind us. Lisa and Danny were nowhere to be seen. "We have to find help," Jess panted, her breath forming clouds in the icy air. But as we stumbled through the dark, it became clear that the forest was not the same as before. The trees seemed to shift, their branches reaching out like grasping hands. The snow underfoot turned sticky, clinging to our boots like tar. "This isn't real," I muttered, my voice trembling. "This can't be real." But it was. The creature's shrieks grew closer, and I realized with a sinking feeling that we were running in circles. The forest was alive, twisting and shifting to keep us trapped. Then Jess tripped. She fell hard, crying out as her ankle twisted beneath her. "Leave me," she gasped as I knelt beside her. "Save yourself." "No," I said firmly, hauling her to her feet. "We're getting out of this. Together." But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. The creature appeared again, its skeletal form emerging from the shadows. I tried to drag Jess away, but she was too weak to run. She shoved me hard, sending me stumbling forward. "Go," she screamed. I hesitated, tears streaming down my face, before turning and running. Her screams followed me, piercing the night until they were abruptly cut off. I don't remember how long I ran. Hours, maybe. The forest seemed endless, an unending labyrinth of darkness and snow. Eventually, I stumbled into a clearing, collapsing to my knees. The sky above was gray, the first light of dawn breaking through the clouds. I thought I was safe, thought I had escaped. But then I heard it, the faint sound of scratching coming from behind me. I turned slowly, my heart pounding. The creature was there, its hollow eyes gleaming in the dim light. It raised one long, clawed finger and pointed at me, a grotesque smile spreading across its face. "Happy New Year," it rasped, its voice like the creaking of ancient wood. And then, everything went black. I don't believe in New Year's resolutions anymore. Not after what happened last year. It was December 31st, and I was spending the holiday alone in my small apartment. It wasn't unusual. I'd grown used to solitude over the years, though this year felt heavier. My breakup with Sarah had been the final crack in my carefully crafted facade of normalcy. Still, I wanted to mark the occasion somehow. So I bought a cheap bottle of champagne, ordered takeout, and sat on my couch, scrolling mindlessly on my phone. That's when the ad appeared. "Start the year with a clean slate. Let us help you leave your regrets behind. Make your wish before midnight." The text was accompanied by a sleek black and gold banner, the kind you'd expect from a luxury service. Beneath it was a single button, "Make your resolution." It felt odd, almost too targeted, but I was bored, tipsy, and curious. Without thinking, I clicked the link. The screen went black for a moment before a form appeared. "What do you wish to leave behind?" A single question. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Regrets? Guilt? The weight of loneliness? The words swirled in my mind like a storm, but what I typed instead was something I hadn't admitted even to myself. I wish I could leave myself behind. I hit submit before I could second guess it. The screen flickered, and for a moment, I thought I'd accidentally downloaded a virus. But then, a single line of text appeared in elegant, glowing script. "Your resolution is accepted. Midnight marks the beginning of your new self." I laughed nervously. Some kind of viral marketing stunt, I figured. I closed my laptop, polished off the champagne, and went to bed before the clock struck 12. The first sign something was wrong came the next morning. I woke up groggy, the kind of hangover that feels like your brain is wrapped in cotton. Stumbling into the bathroom, I splashed cold water on my face and froze when I looked in the mirror. It wasn't my reflection staring back. The face was mine, same hazel eyes, same dark hair, but the expression was wrong. Too calm, too confident. It smiled at me, but I hadn't smiled. I stumbled back, my heart pounding, but the reflection stayed perfectly still. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice trembling. The reflection tilted its head, mimicking me now, but its eyes glimmered with something alien. "You made the wish," it said. Its voice was my voice, but smoother, darker. "This isn't real," I muttered, backing out of the bathroom. "Oh, it's real," it said, stepping closer to the glass. "You wanted to leave yourself behind, didn't you? I'm here to take your place." I slammed the bathroom door and bolted to the kitchen, my mind racing. Was this some kind of psychotic break? A vivid nightmare? But when I turned on the TV, the screen flickered, and there it was, my face, staring back at me. "You can't run from this," it said, its smile widening. Panic surged through me. I grabbed my phone and tried to call someone, anyone, but the screen went black, and the voice came through the speaker. Midnight was the deal. You can't undo it. I spent the rest of the day in a haze, avoiding mirrors, screens, anything reflective. But it was everywhere, my face, watching me, speaking to me. And the more I ignored it, the more real it became. By evening, the reflections were no longer confined to glass or screens. They stepped out, shadows peeling from the walls, taking shape in my living room, my bedroom, until I was face to face with myself. It wasn't just one anymore. There were many. Each one was a different version of me, smiling, crying, angry, laughing. They surrounded me, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of mocking words. You wanted this. You're nothing. We'll be better. I tried to fight, throwing objects, screaming, but my fists passed through them like smoke. They laughed, their laughter echoing and growing louder until it drowned out my thoughts. At exactly 11:55 p.m., they stopped. All of them turned to me in unison, their faces eerily calm. It's almost time, one of them said. For what? I croaked, tears streaming down my face. For you to go, it replied. The world seemed to tilt, the room spinning around me as the reflections stepped closer. Their forms shifted, melding together into a single entity, tall, imposing, with my face but none of my humanity. Wait, I begged, backing away. I didn't mean it. I take it back. It shook its head slowly. Resolutions are binding, it said, its voice echoing with finality. The clock struck midnight, and everything went dark. I woke up the next day in the same apartment. The sun streamed through the windows, and for a moment, I thought it had all been a nightmare. But when I looked in the mirror, the face staring back wasn't mine anymore. It was smiling, and I was gone.